Am I looking at social interaction, the importance of community, and finding that financial security? All those things are the type of things that are playing on the minds of people right now.
Welcome to the Business Behind Your Business, conversations to help your business grow and thrive. Hi, I'm Paul Sweeney, founder of Pretium Solutions, Chartered Accountants and Certified Business Advisors, hosting the Business Behind Your Business. Welcome to the Business Behind Your Business, and we are looking today at a question that a lot of people have been asking, and we've had some very specific questions on this topic come to us. And that's this whole idea of what is the future of work? What's it going to look like? What does it mean for you as a business owner, and what does it mean for your employees? And who better to help us look into this topic and answer some of the questions we have than Harry Nathoo. Harry, welcome back.
Thanks, Paul. Nice to be here.
Well, there's a bit of an air of excitement here. So we're recording this in Sydney, in New South Wales, and we're emerging out of the longest lockdown that we've had in Sydney, just over 3 months. Well, it'll actually be more likely 4 months by the time we come out of it in, I guess, full scale. But there's a bit of excitement about moving back to the office, but that doesn't mean moving back to the way things were, and we've got some changes ahead, and people are starting to question, what does the future of work look like for me? So, Harry, what do we mean by the future of work?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Thanks for the intro. And yes, it is exciting times for us here in New South Wales, I should say, where we will hopefully be out of this whole lockdown next Monday, and more so from the 1st of December. But the future of work is a meme that's been thrown around in recent times, just like they're talking about the new normal. And the other one that's been in the media of recent times is the one of the resignations. So these are the things that are on the minds of employers and employees today. So really the future of work, when we talk about the future of work, it is really characterized by rapid and large-scale changes that will affect all industries, whether you're a small industry, large industry, doesn't matter. And in how work gets done over the next decade. So this will be influenced by technological, generational, and social shifts. So, for example, if we're talking about artificial intelligence, the growth of artificial intelligence in the workplace and the adoption of a more flexible workforce and workplace are the things that are on the minds of employers today. And with that, obviously, the employees, because they have to have that shift as well as we adopt this new normal and the future of work. Employees are going to have to shift from what they have been used to doing prior to the pandemic to what will be required as we move into the next decade. So technology is by far the biggest influencer. Rapid and large-scale changes brought about by advances in artificial intelligence, robotics, automation, big data and analytics are impacting on the type and the number of jobs available. And this in turn will determine how organizations will operate and how the labor market will recognize and meet the new demands and challenges of both the employer and the employee. So technological advances will move more in the direction of automation and AI. And this will require people who want to remain relevant in the future of work, to attain new technical and digital competencies, such as information and data literacy, for example. And then also, adopt not only the technical skills, but improve on their soft skills. So that really, in a nutshell, I know I went a bit explaining it a bit more in detail, but that really is what the future of work entails.
So we've had quite a lot of change, or a rapid change, really, in the last year and a half to 2 years, COVID being such a big catalyst. But it's not the first time we've experienced this. So we experienced it with the the introduction of the World Wide Web and email and communication, and we go back prior to that and things like the invention of the steam engine. We're constantly evolving in terms of what work looks like and how we define work. So it's such a big topic. There's so many places we can go with this, but I guess maybe the first place to start is, are we going to see a change from this model of 9 to 5, working Monday to Friday and working every day? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, look, Paul, I think what has happened and research conducted by both McKinsey and also Gartner has shown that people have had a good think about what has been happening during this pandemic and the fact that they've been working from home. And 58% or so of people that were interviewed have said that they would not go back to a full-time 9 to 5 job, that they would prefer working a hybrid. Many of them would prefer just working from home. But I think by and large, there is room for more and more people who are looking at a hybrid model where they would prefer coming to the office maybe 2 days a week and work 3 days from home. Many of them have brought up the issue of the time spent traveling to work, that they, spending more than 2 hours just to get to the workplace in a day, and that 2 hours could wisely be used for their family, spending time with their children. So this pandemic has made people to refocus on priorities. And those priorities have brought about, things like, what is important? My job, is earning more money, is my family, all those kind of things are things that have made people come to have a look at themselves and ask themselves what it is that they want. And this is very interesting because these type of things that are playing out right now in the minds of employees falls right into Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Right. And people are asking themselves, okay, so where do I actually fit into Maslow's hierarchy? Am I right at the bottom where I'm only looking to keep a roof over my head and put food on the table? Or am I looking at the next rung up? Am I looking at social interaction, the importance of community, and, finding that financial security? All those things are the type of things that are playing on the minds of people right now. But I think the days of 9 to 5 work is something that's going to be of a much lesser take up in the workforce than what we've experienced in the past.
And look, I think there seems to be a greater acceptance of that among business owners, that 9 to 5 is not necessarily how it's going to be from now on. But if you're got this coming from this background of where your business was open from 9 to 5, there's going to be a change in how your customers or your clients interact with you and how you make resources available for them. So if you've traditionally gone from a 9 to 5, you may need to change your model, because you will have people that want to do business outside of that traditional hours, but you need to have your staffing and your response times available to cater for that. So there's going to be some changes, not just in how we allow people to work, but how we interact with our customer base as a result of changes to where and when people are available.
That's true. And I mean, look, the 9 to 5 model, each industry is going to have to adapt to what works best for them. And not only industry, but even a particular business will have to adapt. Retail works within certain confines, especially retail that is in shopping centers. They may have fixed opening hours laid down by the landlord, right, within the shopping center. But this is where I think the importance of contingent workforce comes in, because your full-time staff may not want to work that 9 to 5 role, and they want to work certain hours, or they would prefer starting, very early in the morning and finish earlier in the day, whereas others would prefer starting after the kids have been dropped off at school and then take a break when the kids come back from school and pull a few hours in the night, and yet do their 38, 40 hours a week. So they will still do that. But there's got to be that flexibility. So employers are going to have to work on a flexible operational system where they can accommodate employees that want to work those type of flexi hours. On the other hand, you also got the hybrid model where people don't want to come to a 9 to 5 job and prefer working from home. So you need flexibility both from a perspective of whether we're going to get people back into the office. You got that question to address, and then you also have the question of, okay, so if you're going to work from home, how do you want to work from home? Are you going to work a 9 to 5? Are you going to work at times? Now that will depend on the industry you work in. Right? It can't apply to every industry. Different industries will require people to basically work around a 9 to 5 schedule because of the nature of work that they do. But the future of work, when we talk of the future of work, we're going to find that a lot of these roles that were once done by people that were in a, let's call them a mid-tier role, those roles are going to be automated, right? And you're going to find that this will lead to job polarization. A lot of those jobs will be taken over by AI tools, especially roles that will require some sort of like data entry kind of things, people working doing office admin roles, just doing routine tasks, administrative work, production line work in manufacturing, banking, accounts administration, and other similar types of roles. Those roles will be automated, and that will lead to that job polarization I mentioned. So these jobs can then transition into either a lower or a higher tier roles. I mean, this brings me to think about, you take the logistics sector, right? You take Amazon for example. Their warehouses are fully automated, right? They've got things that used to be done. 100 people driving forklifts and all those kind of things in the warehouse. Today, it is robotics. Right? You've got one person controlling the entire process of picking the stock, moving that stock, sending it over to the dispatch point, and you've got somebody else taking over from there. That is what we're talking about, and that is what the future of work is going to entail in all other industries as well. I mean, you take banking. Banking also has gone through that process where you can do so much of your banking online. You can do it through an ATM. You can go and deposit your cash in an ATM. You can withdraw cash from your ATM. You can do all those kind of things. And so we have been moving in that direction. But this pandemic, I think, is going to speed things up more. And as I was telling somebody the other day, I said, 10 years ago when I was working in corporate, I remember walking to my boss's office and asking him whether I could work 2 days from home. And what do you think the response I got?
I think back then it would have been a pretty clear no. We're not set up for that sort of stuff. So.
Yeah, you just said no. He says, I can't allow that. He says, you've got to be at work every day. So, that has changed. So a lot of companies that, or staff that were thinking about, working remotely some days or working that hybrid model way back in 2019, it's just turned on its head. And now you find that companies have overnight become more receptive to that model, that they're going to have to do that. But with that, obviously, comes a lot of challenges. There's a whole lot of trends, if I may add, Paul. There's 9 future trends that we're looking at. There's obviously the increase in remote working, which we were talking about. Then there's expanded data collection. So this is the interesting part. This is where companies are saying, okay, if we're going to allow people to work from home, how are we going to monitor that work? All right. So at the moment, about 16% of employers are actually using technologies more frequently to monitor their employees through methods such as virtual clocking in and out and tracking work computer usage and monitoring employee emails or internal communications and their chats. right? While some companies track productivity, others monitor employee engagement and well-being to better understand employee experience. And this is the key, right? This is something that I think is very, very important for business owners to understand, that the days of treating your employee as an employee or as a worker in your organization, that has to shift. That mindset has to shift. It's now going to be a case of your employee as a human being. We have to humanize that worker, because that employee has his or her own needs, has their challenges. And employees are going to have to take those things into account when they're dealing with their employees, that those employees have certain needs and wants and desires in the workplace. And how is that going to work, for their organization? So we're going to have to humanize. The workplace is going to have to become more humanistic. Employers are going to have to be more empathetic to the needs of their people. And that's if they want to retain good quality staff. There's got to be that flexibility. So while they, doing the data collection, they got to be able to take into account that whatever they're monitoring has got to be about employee engagement and the well-being, and to better understand the employee's experience in the workplace and how they can improve that experience for the employee. Then the third trend, which we touched on earlier, was also the contingent worker expansion. So more and more companies are going to look at hiring more casuals or more contract workers. We're experiencing that ourselves. Some companies are looking to hire our services on a consulting basis to come and do specific things for them as a 6-month contract. So we are receiving some of those requests where they want us to come in. So they have a full HR department, but they still want us to come and do specific things for them. So that is actually playing out right now, where organizations will continue to expand their use of contingent workers to maintain more flexibility in the workforce management post COVID-19, and will consider introducing other job models they have seen during the pandemic, such as talent sharing. As you may know, that Google, for example, said that if you want to work from home, you've got to take a 50% pay cut. Right? So those things are the type of things that are going to happen. The fourth thing is the employer's role as a social safety net. So while the pandemic has increased the trend of employers playing as an expanded role in the employee's financial, physical, and mental well-being, the support includes enhanced sick leave, financial assistance, adjusted hours of operation, and childcare provisions. This is what I think employees will be looking for in this new future of work. That how can you make it more comfortable, more conducive for me to be able to give you the best output, the best performance, if you are able to also provide me with, maybe additional sick leave when I need that, adjusted hours of operation, so working on that flexible flexi hour model, and also childcare provisions. How can you accommodate that? So that's another factor that the future of work requires employers to look into. And then really the skills, the separation of critical skills and roles. That is another area of focus that Gartner identified. And so before COVID, critical roles were viewed as roles with critical skills or capabilities. But to build a workforce, you'll need to, in the post-pandemic era, you need to focus less on roles and make opportunities more broadly available to people to grow within the organization. All right. And instead of saying that, we only want to focus on leadership skills or any particular area to uplift people to progress within the organization. You rather want to open it up and see what it is that that people feel passionate about within the organization, which roles are of interest to them, where do their interests lie, so that they can upskill themselves for those roles. And so organizations, to keep good people, will need to consider those type of things as well. So offering greater career development support to employees, not only in critical roles, but also where critical skills are needed for future roles within the organization.
I think what we're sort of looking at here is that a complete change in the way you manage, or not sort of just manage, but leadership of your employees. Because we've gone from very much a task-based employment where you can physically monitor and see what's going on to a very remote situation where there's a lot of trust required, and we need to rely on other methods. So we need to rely on technology and outcomes to measure the performance rather than just physically watching. And I know we've talked about this previously, but
yes,
just assuming that somebody is sitting at their desk working 9 to 5 means they're getting the job done. It doesn't mean necessarily they're achieving the outcomes they're employed to do.
yeah.
So I think there's going to need to be some dramatic changes in how employers and business owners lead their employees in terms of you identified the skilling and the education criteria, but also I think the processes of systemizing the knowledge of the business so that your contingent workers can come into the business and identify exactly this is how we do it in our business. So there's going to need to be a huge change. And this is a good thing, I think, because a lot of business owners keep all the knowledge in their head and make a lot of the decisions. There needs to be, I guess, an unlocking of that vault and get the information out there in a format that your current employees and any future employees can easily digest what needs to be done in terms of the function that they're performing at that point in time, whenever they're performing. Because if we're working different hours. So if I've got an employee that wants to start work at 6 o'clock in the morning, I can pretty much guarantee you I'm not going to be there every morning at 6 o'clock. But if they need to perform a function and get a piece of work out, they need to know exactly what's required and where to get the information and what steps in the process without needing to consult me, because I may not be there. And if we're in a remote environment, there's a bigger reliance on equipping your employees with not just the resources in terms of IT equipment and software, but the knowledge of how we do things.
That's right. And again, you see that's one of what you're talking about here is really about having clarity and superior communication skills. That is one of the skills that I want to talk about later is really one of those 8 top skills that we're talking about is really having that superior communication skills. And when you're working, I don't know if you want to get to that point now, but you're correct in what you're saying, that we're going to have this shift where while you're getting contingent workers coming in, that there's got to be clarity in exactly what you want them to do. Now, to do that, there's got to be a shift. When we talk of a shift from the employer's mindset, we're also talking really about the HR people within that organization. Because I think the biggest shift has got to come from HR departments, where they are going to be able to deal with this type of contingent workforce and how they're going to manage that. What sort of performance criteria are they going to be looking for in those people? And how are those performance criteria going to differ from the full-time staff? They'll have to come up with a different model for contingent workers because they're there for a short time, maybe for a specific task, and you want to measure that their output within that period and measure that to decide what to do next with those type of people. So that mind shift is a big thing, and I think it's going to be one of the biggest challenges for employers is to change that mindset from the way they were doing things in the past to changing now, to transitioning from designing for efficiency for resilience. And that's they're going to have to be resilient, but so does the employee going to have to be more and more resilient to be able to deal with the new challenges that come about in that workplace, because as new technology gets introduced, people are going to have to learn that. If they want to remain relevant in the workplace, they're going to have to shift that mindset of the way they were doing things in the past to what is now required of them moving forward. And that requires, again, upskilling or reskilling in certain instances. So it is, yeah.
Well, there's
You're right.
certainly a change in how you educate. Like I know when you onboard a new employee, traditionally there was a lot of hand-to-hand or face-to-face instruction on this is how we do it here or this is how you use the system, which relied, it actually was quite an inefficient process because you were not only having a new employee that was learning a process, so they weren't actually producing any outcomes or income, but you're also tying up one of your existing resources in terms of one of your other employees who had to actually show them how to do things quite regularly.
Yeah.
Now, I think in an online environment, one of the obvious solutions there is the recording of, I guess, instructional or explainer videos on how we do this process. And we can use a lot of the technology that's available, we've talked about how it's eroding what people, or it's eliminating certain jobs, but it's also creating a better way of educating. We can create a video to show somebody how they do the next step, what resources they need, where they go to look for things. And the advantage of the video is that they can go back to that again and again. And you record it once and it's used many times. So there's opportunities, I think, to improve the way we educate, and it relies on us taking that first step of being willing to share that knowledge as well.
Yeah, look, that's very true, Paul, because one of the biggest challenges we find many times when we place people in organizations and when we go and do a one-on-one review with the employee 6 weeks into the role, many of them tell us that I wasn't onboarded properly. Right? I had to find out a lot of things on my own, and that was very frustrating for me. It wasn't a good experience. So, that, and sometimes we would get a call from employees that we just placed, not even before the 6-week period. We would get a call and say, look, I don't know if this is the right job for me because I haven't been onboarded, so I don't really know what they're expecting from me. I don't know who the go-to person is for things that I need to discuss. And we've had to take this up with the employer and say, look, this guy actually meets the needs of the business based on what your job description was. So you've got the right person there, but you're not giving this employee a good experience right in the beginning of her employment. So, either you're going to do something or the employer is going to quit the job. So we've had to intervene sometimes and get things done. And this typically happens in organizations where there isn't an HR department. And so a lot of the onboarding is left, to the department manager or the team leader or the supervisor to do the onboarding, and the supervisor is too busy doing all other things, fighting fires all the time and not actually doing what they have to do with the new employee. So those things happen. And you're right. These things can be automated. Like having a video, the new employee can always refer as many times as they want to go back to that video and get the clarification that they need. And also help the organization to improve when they identify gaps within onboarding video.
And look, if you think back to, I guess, how we traditionally onboard an employee, I've spoken with a number or many employers over the years, and one of the common things is that when you get a new employee, it's often 3 to 6 months before they really start to be productive. Now, that's a lot of wasted time. Yeah. That's a lot of wasted resource, because it's not just the new employee that you're not getting resources or productivity out of. You're using other existing employees who are not able to perform at their capacity because they're training during that period. So if we can shorten that period, there's an obvious advantage. You're going to get that employee onboarded quicker. They're going to feel more part of the business. They're going to feel more comfortable in their new role, and they're going to be productive earlier on. And you're also going to have your existing employees productive. But this also ties into that idea of this contingent workforce. if you're employing a contingent worker, you can't afford as an employer to spend a lot of time explaining to them or showing them how to, or answering their questions on how to do the job. You need them to come in and be able
That's
to hit
right.
the ground running.
That's right. Yeah, and so these are the things that employers are going to have to look at. So while we are moving in that direction where employees are looking at more of a contingent workforce that helps them to reduce overheads and all those kind of things, at the end of the day, they got to have systems and processes in place that gives both that contingent employee a good experience having to come to work for the employer, and the employer is able to get maximum output out of that employee for the task that he or she's been employed for. So I think that is so important that those systems and processes are in place. And where there's no HR department, it is always good to outsource that type of facility to people like Paul, for example, right, who can help them with the legalities around contingent workforce.
Yeah. So it's Paul Cripps, who's been quite a regular on the podcast, is well placed to help in that sort of situation where you're onboarding and you don't have the HR resources on in house. So I think, Harry, we've identified that if the working environment is different, and we're going to move to more hybrid, flexible arrangement with some needs. So employees are going to be, or your future employees are going to be asking about how your business is going to accommodate that, but they're also going to be, I think, asking how you're going to train them to do their role, or how you're going to train them in how your company, your business, does what it does. Because you're going to have this frustration if they don't know what they're doing, then they're going to be looking for another role very quickly. You need to get that onboarding sorted very quickly in this new environment, particularly where we've got remote employees, because we're now hearing of people starting jobs and have never actually physically met their employer.
Yeah. I know my nephew, when he started working, he got the job during COVID. And so the whole induction and onboarding process was done, online. And he only got to meet the boss long after that first lockdown that we had last year. And then when things opened up again, that's when he met the boss. But it was good that the company was very professional in the way they set up the whole online system and the portal, and everything that he needed from a laptop, everything was couriered to his home. And so he had everything before the first day of starting work. And that was a very good experience. And that made him feel good about starting that job. And he's still there, and he enjoys every minute of working for this organization. So, those employee experience is going to be very, very important in the new future of work, because I think, if you want to call it a power shift, the power has actually shifted from the employer to the employee in this new future of work. And employers will have to consider a lot of these type of things when we're talking about a hybrid workforce, as to how they're going to accommodate, what are they going to provide for these employees to give them a good employee experience. We always spoke about customer experience. But to give customer experience, you're going to first have to consider giving employee experience, so that they can then, in turn, give you the customer experience that ultimately that you want them to do for you. With that, obviously, comes a lot of skills.
So thanks, that's good. So Harry, thank you for some great background and some knowledge there, and talking about skills and the future of work. So there's a lot to unpack there. Where should people go to get more information on this, or how do they get in contact with you to find out more?
I would love to have a chat with them. So my contact details, either via my mobile number or email. So it's 0414 775 214, or they can email me at harry.nathoo at keyactlearn, KEYACTLEARN.com. So harry.nathoo at keyactlearn.com. And I would be happy to have a chat with them, understand exactly what it is that they're looking for, what their challenges are, and see how we can help them.
That's great. Well, thanks, Harry, again for all of that. We'll put your contact details in the show notes, and we'll look forward to getting you back in future to unpack some more of these issues about how we get more out of or not just more out of our employees, but how we get the best outcomes and relationships for our employees. Thanks for listening. Do you have a question you'd like our team of experts to answer? If you do, send your question to podcast@thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. To hear more from The Business Behind Your Business, don't forget to subscribe using your favourite podcast player. Or you can visit the businessbehindyourbusiness.com website.